Hello everyone, Min here bringing you some Brawlhalla content. Today I'm going over the updated patch 9.03 tier list for Legends. This is right up and leading up to the Winter Championship Brawlhalla 2025. We've had a bit of a string of balance patches and the Winter Championship is this weekend. So I'm predicting that there's not going to be any more balance patches leading up to this event. So I think it's a good time to make the tier list because there's nothing that's going to just knock anything out of the water and make me have to change this for a while. So let's go right ahead and cover the tier list. I made 4 tiers. At the top of the list is easy mode. You play this character, it's like you're playing the game on easy mode, makes the game easy to win, supposedly. Like, there you should be like a perfect character, easy to use, no flaws, that kind of thing. Great Pick is just a solid, all around good character. I mean, they're just really good. They might be a little bit overtuned, but they're not broken. So that's where that would go. Good Pick is just balanced characters that are pretty good, but they just might have some other things to balance it out so that they're not too good. And at the bottom tier, we have Practice Makes Perfect, which is basically legends that have their fair share of flaws dragging them down. So if you want to main them, you'd have to put in quite a bit of work to make it work, so to say. So let's get right to it. So let's just put in one character or legend for each tier as a baseline for now. So starting off, we've got a Moogie in easy mode. Now, it should be no surprise. You look on Brawlmance or any Brawlhalla database kind of website, you can tell that a Moogie is like always top 4, easily highest win rate legend. I mean, he's slow, which means you should have no issue gimping him. But like his weapons have such huge hitboxes, and he has so much strength and damage and defense that keeps him alive if he doesn't get gimped. So like, you can afford to make mistakes, and everything that you hit on the enemy will impact much more. And his SIGs, even though they've been nerfed multiple times, they're still good. Like, the side SIG on Greatsword is insane. It reaches so far and it hits so hard. All of the SIGs honestly hit hard, and they all have their easy usage applications. The weapon combination is pretty solid too. Greatsword can struggle killing if you can't read, but you don't need to read to kill with Axe because you just need like a stray hit. So, Imugi, easy mode. For Great Pick, I would probably say Bodvar. Where are you, Bodvar? There you are. Bodvar is a great pick because Sword is debatably the best weapon in the game because it's been buffed, patch to patch, back to back. So Sword's a good weapon. Hammer has been nerfed throughout the years, but it's been rebuffed. So it's just an okay weapon. Although Hammer's probably like bottom 4 weapon in my opinion, but it's still a reliable weapon to go for any strategy with. Although you have to be more on the patient side with Bodvar. But he's got balanced stats, solid signatures, good weapon combination, even though you might struggle against diagonals. That's literally the only weakness. Otherwise, Bodvar is a great pick. Sword downsig on Bodvar is exceptional. And his hammer's pretty solid too. So great pick for you, Bodvar. Now, moving into characters that are just good picks, we've got... Where are you? Moving into characters that are just good picks, we got Caspian. Like, Caspian is a good pick because he has good signatures, his weapons are good, His signatures are good, his stats are pretty good, but like he might have like something that holds them back for good pick characters, and Caspian's thing holding him back is that his weapon combination is really redundant, so he doesn't have anything that can compensate for the weaknesses of his weapons. Like they're both close range string based weapons. But other than that, he's a really good character. He hits hard, really hard, lots of patches that buffed him. So yeah, good character. You just have to work with the weapon combination. But he excels at gimps though, so there's that. Moving into the most iconic character for Practice Makes Perfect, I'll put Queen Nai here. Don't get me wrong, Queen Nai is still a good character. She has good weapons too, spear and guitars. But the biggest issue with her is that she's base 3 speed, just like a Mugi. But unlike a Mugi, her weapons actually need speed to position and get reads and follow-ups. Meanwhile, a Mugi's Greatsword and Axe are more grounded kind of gameplay. So yes, Queen Nai does suffer from that, and that's why she's in the Practice Makes Perfect. She has strong signatures, and she has downlight into N-Sig, true on Spear, and her hitboxes on her SIGs and Force is good, but the main issue is the speed. So, and it's detrimental for Spear and guitars to have low speed because you like to carry them off and then go for extended strings. So that's kind of an issue. So we'll put Queen Nai there. Now that we've got a baseline legend for each tier, let's continue on as usual for our tier list. Okay, for Ada. Ada, I would say, is a good pick. Now, the reason I say this, that she's not a great pick, is because it's just simply her stats. Base 3 defense really stinks, so you're forced to play defense stance, which is basically locked to one stance, which removes flexibility. But it's not all that bad because she has an insane spear king kit. Like sidelight N-Sig and downlight N-Sig are insane strings for Ada Spear instant gimps if they're already orange. On top of that, the down sig on Spear covers the weakness of Spear, which is like stacked and close to grounded to get kills. And her blasters are actually underrated because you can easily get offstage confirms with her blaster N-Sig, and her side sig hits hard. And the down sig got buffed to kill somewhat early enough compared to before, so that's fine too. It's just that she has good, her stats are alright because with the 6 decks on defense stance, you still get Spear, Sayer, and like True. So she has decent stats for her weapon combination, but as a downside of that, you kind of wish that she was more well-rounded like Diana. Like, if she had Diana stats, then Ada would be moved up to great pick, for sure. But since she starts off with 3 defense, we're forced to put her in good pick because defense does matter because you can't play perfect all the time. Okay. Vector. I've been maining Vector lately. And honestly, Vector is a great pick. Now, don't get me wrong, people do hate on Vector for his lance sigs being unintuitive to use, but his bow is like top 4 bow sigs in the game. Because like down sig on bow hits all over like Orion's down sig on spear, and like side sig on bow is good for those catching the runaway kind of sigs. It's like Mirage side sig on scythe pretty much for bow, so that's not too bad. And neutral sig on bow is stringable off of downlight, and that builds up decent damage when you can get a read, so that's pretty solid. It's just a real downer though for Vector that his neutral sig and his side sig on lance can't be slide charged, which really ruins some versatility there, but they're still good as gravity cancels too. But if you can master his down sig on Lance, like for wall edge guarding, that's insane because it has a unique wall version for the down sig where those shots splash all over into the wall, which covers a lot of area with good force too. Surprisingly more force for the wall version. And the wall version for neutral sig on Lance is cool too. Side sig may need a buff though, because if you gravity cancel side sig into the wall, there's like no force whatsoever. So there's that. He has solid stats. You can use any stance on him just fine. So that's a big plus for Vector is his flexibility and stats. Honestly, if you can just work with his Lance signatures, then Vector is a great pick. He's well rounded and he doesn't really lose any matchups that hard, so that's just really a plus. Now for Mako. Mako is a great pick. And the reason I say this is because Great Sword's in a good spot as long as you know what you're doing. Katar's is always a good weapon due to just frame data alone, as well as the half pipe combo. But like, you get high speed, so it really helps with chasing, and it does help with offstage in case if you need to get back, especially on her weapons. But she has good sigs for dunking overall, which is really fun and really powerful to be able to dunk with those weapons because they have good edge guarding game too. The active inputs on the Katars in particular are really cool. The down sig on Greatsword is cool. There's nothing wrong with Mako. It's just it could be unwieldy having two string-based weapons together. That's literally the only thing. But everything else is good. Barraza. Now, Barraza is just a good pick. The reason he's a really good pick, but he's not a great pick. The reason being is he's kind of slow. That's the main issue. And also, blasters and axe together is a okay combination. Since you can still get kills with blasters with downlight recovery if you need to, you can just get straight hits and kill with axe if you need to. He has an insane axe reversal with neutral sig. His down sig on axe is pretty good. The blaster sigs are really good, especially down sig on blasters killing super early and neutral sig being a good anti-air. But but sometimes you just need the extra positioning, wiggle room, and base 4 speed is kind of an issue. You can bump it up to 5 speed, but there's some times where you wish you could have a bit more speed on those weapons, but you can't. So if you can play 5 speed on those weapons, then all good for you, all the power to you. But otherwise, his side stigs on both weapons are just average, so that's a bit holding him back from being overtuned character. So that's just about all the input I have on Barraza. He's just really balanced. He's not overtuned whatsoever, but still a great pick. Like, he's just a very good pick, but he's just shy of being a great pick. Mirage is a character that I've spent quite a bit of time on, and I would say Mirage is a great pick solely because she has a strong signature kit, and she has objectively one of the best weapon combinations for a specific playstyle, and that has got to be like zone control, because you can easily cover anti-air so well with Scythe and Spear, and you can just capitalize off of reads easily with her SIGs and weapons combined, and you can capitalize with high strength and get kills super quick, since she's already base 7 strength. And she's somewhat flexible. You can opt to go balance with 6 strength, 5 defense, or you can just max out and go 8 strength, 4 defense. But the low defense can be an issue if you can't get your reads and your opponent's outpacing you, so that's literally the only thing that's keeping her from being an easy character. She's a great character, but but just don't be assured that the game's going to open up to you very well just because you're playing Mirage, though. Especially because her down sigs got a bit of a speed nerf, so they don't feel as fast as they used to be. Azoth has his active frames and like weird hitbox tricks up his sleeve, but I would say he's still only a good pick. And the main reason being is that Axe and Bow are really good for area denial because of the anti-airs and like the confirms that they have with like Bow downlight into whatever. But Azoth has the glaring issue where he has 5 dex, but he's base 4 in speed, which means you have an awkward arrangement of stats where you have more dex than you intend to, but you don't have the most dex that you want. Because for Bow, you either want as few dex as possible, or you want right on 6 dex. And going to 6 dex with Azoth is terrible because you're getting rid of the already low speed for that. And on top of that, you're lingering at 5 dex still when you go to speed stance, which puts him at 6 strength, 6 defense, 5-5. So you're kind of lacking in the stats department, but you kind of make up for it by having a good weapon combination with okay signatures. But the signatures themselves aren't super quick, aside from the axe kit. So the bow is slower than you'd expect compared to other bow kits, so that's something to keep in mind. But if you can work around this, then Azoth is a good pick. His axe neutral sig for Azoth is such a hard hitting signature too, and it hits grounded, so that's amazing. But the stats though kind of disappointing. That's all I can say. Brawlhalla. Brawlhalla is a good pick, but suffers the same issues as Ada because, well, she has low defense, base 3 defense. And honestly, all of that dex is kind of a waste for her weapons. So I'm going to have to put her lower than Ada. Like, you start off, like, you're forced to play defense stance to make 4 defense. Then, Brawlhalla has 6 dex, which is useless, especially now, because back then, 7 dex is fine for the sidelight into neutral light unjumpable thing for sword, but now the dex doesn't matter because we got buffs on sword so much that anyone can do sidelight, neutral light unjumpable. And Axe doesn't really gain anything unless you're at higher dex, like 8 or 9, but that wouldn't even matter because why would you play dex stance on Brawlhalla? But she has easy weapon combinations, and she hits hard, but she's really pulled back by the waste of stats and dex, because those extra points could have been put anywhere else and she'd be way better. But her down sigs are amazing though, so we can't hold too much against her. Okay, Moonin. I would say Moonin is a great pick. Especially because if you like Jiro but you don't like anything, if like say you like Jiro stats but you don't like the other things about Jiro, then you can play Moonin with dex stance. Then it'll be exactly like Jiro with 4 strength, 4 defense, 7 dex, 7 speed. Then you have Nair Stair shenanigans on Scythe, and you still get the dex for Bow with downlight ground pound being true. So that's a great asset that Moonin has, and she has an amazing signature kit. The only average one that's not too good is probably Bow neutral sig. But then again, Bow is already amazing by itself, so that's not too big of a deal. Sidelight into neutral sig on Scythe is unjumpable, I believe. So Moonin's a solid character. You can go with all sorts of stances for Moonin. But like, if you don't care too much about downlight ground pound on Bow, then maybe go with speed stance. But otherwise, just stick around with like 6 to 7 dex, depending on how much you favorite Scythe or Bow. And also, Bow downsig on Moonin is busted. So that's my input. Reno. Reno's just a good pick. And the reason I'm saying this is because surprisingly stats do matter quite a bit, especially when you're when you're like evenly matched with your opponent in skills. The stats really do come in clutch. And Reno is the kind of character, kind of like other characters where you just have too much dex in your base stats. So you get rid of the dex, you get 5 strength, 6 defense, 6 dex, and 5 speed, but you're not really benefiting much from that dex. So it's kind of a waste, but otherwise he's a solid character. His sigs are really good. He has no bad signatures whatsoever. His weapon combination is good because Blasters does struggle against Orb, but you have an Orb yourself to fight, so that's pretty solid. And the side light into neutral sig is unjumpable on Orb, so you almost have a Diana and Bow minigame there, but on an Orb, so that's cool. But the stats are kind of a waste, though. That's the issue. I suppose if you can manage with 5 speed on Reno's weapons, then he's pretty solid. But like, if you care about stats, then Reno's just a solid pick. He's not very great, but he's just solid. I'll probably put Reno at the top of good picks because his signatures are pretty quick compared to Azoth. Zol. Zol is a great pick, although just barely. His signatures are kind of unwieldy to use, but they all hit hard. So there's that. His stats are pretty good for winning exchanges. His weapons hit hard. I mean, most of the combos do 30 damage with his stats, so that's insane. So, yeah. This is a 1v1 tier list, by the way. So, yeah. I don't have too much to say about Zol, because all you really care about is just winning exchanges with Zol, and then you'll always come out on top. But it's just unwieldy signatures that are kind of difficult to use. That's all that's holding him back. Otherwise, he has pretty solid stats too, so solid. But pretty great because the stats work in his favor. Asuri is easy mode without a doubt. I mean, you don't really need all that dex unless you're an avid Qatar player that really wants to exploit everything Qatar's has. But Asuri is just an easy mode character because, one, Sword is like the best weapon in the game right now with all the buffs it's got. And not only that, but Qatar's and Sword together, that's just free frame data mode right there. You're going to outspeed anyone that you fight. So you almost have no fear of getting punished unless you mess up big time. But at the same time, your SIGs still hit reasonably hard too. So yeah, Asuri, no surprise being in easy mode. Zariel. Now Zariel is a great pick, but kind of like the opposite of Zol. Like, the stats could have been better for the weapon combination because low speed on those weapons is kind of disappointing because you really would have benefited a lot if you had just a little bit more speed to carry off with Gimps and stuff. But you have amazing signatures. Like, bow side sig, easily spammable. All of the gauntlet sigs are easily spammable. You can get back with neutral sig on gauntlets. Like, the sigs really carry Zariel up here. Like, that's what separates him from being a good pick to a great pick, is just the signatures alone. And the weapon combination is pretty solid because bow covers the matchups that you might struggle with when you're gauntlets. So there's that too. Zariel's rather underplayed though, but I have spent some time playing Zariel and I do know his strengths. And that's definitely having a solid weapon combination that can compensate for matchups, and also having good signatures. Sidra. is a great pick. Is Sidra easy mode? Not quite. Simply because you still need quite a amount. It might seem kind of skillless to spam the anchor and the tentacles on the sword for Sidra to get quick, cheap kills. But like, you still need to manage the micro spacing to land those, and otherwise you have to master fundamentals, and you're still easily punished. Besides the cannon neutral sig, but the flexible stats probably catapult Sidra up to top of great picks because Sidra has probably the best stats in the game with like 4 decks and then 6 for everything else, which means you can literally choose any stance for your gun to fit your needs. The signatures might be kind of sluggish at first for Sidra, but if you can learn to work with it, she's an amazing pick. Cross has been nerfed quite a bit, but he still has solid stats though. So I'm going to put Cross right here. His signatures are kind of mid, but they still hit pretty hard though. And having 4 decks is kind of like the sweet spot for the decks because you can just go minus decks and then he'll have 6 speed, which is also good. And he still hits hard and he can still tank a lot with his 6 defense. And you can even opt for 8 strength, and 8 strength blasters is no joke. You can build up damage and get early kills. So Cross is a great pick. Ragnir is a great pick. But like, he's not the reason why Ragnir is not the top of great pick is because he's slightly hampered by the fact that you kind of wish that he has less decks so that he can have better stats in other areas. But still, going to speed stance with Ragnir is still solid because you can do pretty much whatever you want in terms of playstyle. Gimps, defensive, aggressive, whatever, but not quite in the same area as a Suri because instead of a sword you have an axe, which is a bit easier to telegraph and punish. And that's literally all that's holding him back. Like, a Suri can get away with the stats because the weapon combination is just too perfect. But Ragnir is kind of like a heavier Asuri if you get the drift. And it's just held back because with a heavier weapon, Dex is even less important, so that's why he's here. Olgrim. Olgrim is a great pick along the veins of like Zul because he just has the stats to just win trades and exchanges over and over again. If like say you're fighting Olgrim or like Zul, that kind of type of character, you hit them with a straight Sair, they hit you with a straight Sair, and then just do that over and over 5 times. The Olgrim's gonna come out on top. So that's why he's so good. His signatures on Lance are just okay, but Lance neutral sig on Olgrim is pretty solid because sidelight neutral sig unjumpable and it covers a good area above. And he has amazing axe signatures. So yeah, right here for Olgrim. He's just not higher because he's kind of lopsided on how good his signature kits are. Heavily leaning towards axe. Ember is just a good pick. Along the veins of Ada, Ember would be a good pick. Probably above Ada, because Bow Ensig on Ember is still insane. But honestly, the stats for Ember isn't half bad, but you still have the weakness where she's base 3 defense, so you're guaranteed to be running 4 defense. Identical stats to Ada in that case with defense stance. But you still benefit from the decks because bow down like ground pound will be true, which actually factors more often than you think when you fight in an edge guard situation or like when you're pushing them towards the edge. So yeah, that's pretty solid. But base 3 defense will always be a liability, though, no matter what. Dusk. Dusk is a great pick. Whether you're a spear player or an orb player, Dusk's stats are pretty solid. He hits hard, and if you run strength stance, 6 dex is the sweet spot for spear if you like consistency on the Sarah Neutralite. And also, both weapons have solid signatures that are quick and have good area denial. It's just that he starts off with 4 defense. But except, I guess that's kind of the sacrifice you want to make if you want to play 6 decks. So, that's that. Ezio. Ezio I would put at the top of good pick. And I would say this because his weapon combination is just overall solid. Like Bodvar levels of solid. You can build up damage quickly with both weapons. You can confirm easily for kills with both weapons due to their inherent true combos. But Ezio has one major flaw, is that he starts off with 7 dex and 4 defense, which is a waste of stats. That's literally all that's holding him back. Otherwise, he has, like, debatably a really epic sword kit, because down sig on sword gives me Diana vibes. And on top of that, you get to confirm with Sarah if it doesn't spike. So, yeah. And also, down light neutral sig on sword, unjumpable, and it spikes like Diana. Bow. So, yep. You're literally held back by having stats that don't suit you, Ezio. Sorry. Arcadia, kind of the same vein. Just a good pick, but behind Ezio. Arcadia starts off with 7 dex, 7 strength, 4 speed, 4 defense. And that's already an issue right off the bat, because speed and defense are like the best stats in the game, and you're low on both of them, which means you can only get one of them to acceptable territory. So I guess you're probably going to go with speed, because 5 speed is immensely better than 4 speed. So now you have 7 dex, which is a liability. Spear really only needs 6, so that's extra dex could have gone to defense, and then you would have been cooking. But unfortunately, no. So Arcadia has an amazing kit for both weapons with the signatures, but the stats just hold her back, so that's why she's just a good pick. She could easily be great if she just had 1 less dex. What a shame. And also, her neutral sigs hit grounded, both of them. So there's a plus. Onyx. Onyx is a great pick. No doubt about it. Kind of like similar to Olgrim, you got tons of defense and solid strength when you need to. And you start off with 4 dex. Just go speed stance, you'll have 3 dex, 6 speed. Is this 6 strength and 8 defense? Holy. Yeah. That's amazing for exchanges. I mean, the SIGs have been nerfed throughout the years, but it's still solid. And as long as you know how to use the weapons, you can get strings and high damage strings and gimps, and you can just keep saring right on back to stage whenever you get knocked away. So if you want to live long, choose Onyx. Along the veins of living long, we got Magyar with base 9 defense. I would say Magyar is a great pick because it doesn't hurt to have good exchange stats like defense and like high defense or high strength. And greatsword is solid, but hammer is just okay. So that's why he's not higher. Actually, Magyar is a they. Yep. Not much to say else about Magyar. They just have good stats, and they could go up or down on the tier list depending on balance changes to hammer in particular. I don't think greatsword's getting buffed. Core. Core is a good pick. Now it's kind of a bummer because Core is kind of like Azoth, where why do you have 5 decks? And getting rid of the decks doesn't really help in your case. So you're kind of awkward with 5 decks and 6 strength, 6 defense, 5 speed, because you definitely want to go speed stance on Core because you're 4 speed based. I mean, weapon combination is solid, especially for reversals, and honestly 6 plus 6 for strength and defense is 12, so that's like above average trading potential, so that's pretty solid. So yeah, it could have been better if you had 1 less dex, but that's literally the only thing holding you back from great pick. Moving on. Kaya. I mean, Kaya's a mainstay, and that's mainly because you can just simply minus defense and up the strength, and you don't really get hurt by that because there's no way you're going to get Sarah Neutralite True on Spear anyways. And her signatures for both weapons are solid. I would put her above Mirage, but comparable to Mirage. And the main reason being is that it's kind of like playing the same character if you're choosing between Kaya and Mirage, but you're just choosing between, how long do I like to play a smooth spear or do I like to play a positional spear? If you're playing a positional spear that's dependent on spacing, then go Kaya. If you want to play a smooth spear, then go with Mirage because you can go 6 decks if need be, and you can mesh the SIGs easier for the spear. That's my input there. Otherwise, if you favor the bow, go Kaya. Although you lose down like ground pound because you don't have the decks for Kaya, but the neutral sig on Kaya bow really carries. Like, easy reads. The reason she's not easy mode is because you still have to know how to play fundamentals really well. Now, Yumiko. Yumiko is top of good pick. I can't put her in great picks because getting her to higher defense is not a good idea. You don't want 3 strength, 5 defense, so you're forced to go strength stance, which is not good for exchanges. That's literally the only weakness of Yumiko, is you're not good at exchanges. But otherwise, if you're fundamentally adept with her weapon combination, then you can thrive as Yumiko. The SIGs are pretty solid too. Okay, Tezuka is easy mode. The weapons are easy to read with. They're quick too. And all you gotta do is go strength stance, then he's gonna be a hard hitting guy with easy reads and massive force. The SIGs hit hard too, holy. It's like if you want to play gauntlets, play Tezuka. If you want to play Katars, play a Suri kind of deal. And if you're the oddball person that likes both, then go Caspian, I guess. Wushang. Debatably easy mode. Probably bottom of easy mode. He's been nerfed so much, but he's still so reliable that I could literally pick up Wushang / Chung Li and hop into ranked. And I could easily cheese out wins just by playing fundamentals and just spamming side sigs when I need to, and then throwing in the random neutral sig when I think it'll work. Like, Wushang is such an easy mode character, but you still have to work for your wins because your stats are perfect for Spear, but they're not perfect in every way, so you still have to work around that. But otherwise, super good. Diana is a great pick, albeit albeit on the lower side, just because blasters just requires too much work to get to work. I mean, blasters she benefit more from having more strength, but like for blasters in particular, but you need the dex for the bow. So if you don't mind losing down like ground pound on bow, go speed stance Diana, then that's pretty well balanced. But otherwise, any of the stances besides like dex stance would be solid. Sigs are all right. It's just she requires she requires skill to use well. That's why she's not easy. Excellent bow signatures. Probably the best bow kit in the game. Petra. Petra's a hmm. Is Petra easy mode? That's what I'm wondering. She has such good stats for exchanges. Nah, just great pick. Top of great pick. She's along the veins of like Tezka and Wu Shang in terms of power level, but her orb signatures are slightly sluggish. That's all I'm gonna say. And she starts out with 4 defense instead of 5, and the stances could have been working better, but it's all right. Really great pick. If you like orb more than the other weapons compared to Tezka and Wushang, go with Petra. Rayman, yeah. Rayman is great pick. I mean, he's not amazing, but he's good at what he does, and that's recovery denial, especially with those down sigs. And if you can string together follow ups with either weapon, you're going to be hitting hard, and you can survive well with Rayman because he's balanced. So he's a great pick. Nyx is also a great pick, but along the veins of Diana, you're going to have to use quite a bit of skill because you're a blaster. She has amazing stats and signatures for her kit, but you're going to have to work for it because blasters have inherently always been a tough weapon to master. So there's that. Koji is a great pick. And I would put Koji next to Moonin. Maybe above Moonin. Like, Koji's got everything he needs to be good, minus the dex. All of his SIGs are good, his weapon combination is good, but having all of that dex is a bit of a waste because he only needs 6 dex. Then he would have been perfect. Like, 1 less dex would have been perfect. But alas, he's still so good that he's got to be great. If you favor characters that have reliable matchup spreads, go with Koji. Jaeyun. Jaeyun is easy mode. What can I say, guys? Sword, amazing. Great sword, also amazing. But you have flexible stats. I mean, yeah, strength stance is pretty much an immediate pick, and then you're cooking. The stats, the signatures are amazing. The weapon combination is really good. Can't go wrong with Jaeyun. Red Raptor. Red Raptor is a great pick. Probably right along with Koji. And why do I say this? He's not, Red Raptor is not placed higher because he has the issue where he has more dex than he needs. That's literally about it. A bit too much dex. Otherwise, amazing all else. The SIGs are really good, but Boots side SIG kind of stinks. And that's another thing making him a little bit lower on the great picks list. But otherwise, everything else is amazing. Having Orb as a confirm weapon on top of Boots that can confirm, you can build damage well and you can confirm well. So that's all you need to know. Jiro is a good pick. He has glaring flaws. 3 base defense. And when you up the defense, you lose the strength. But it's kind of obligatory because Jiro has the Nair Sair thing going with his scythe, which makes him rather special, so you can afford to go with those kind of bad stats. But is Nair Sair worth it? Then play Jiro. Or you can opt for Moonin if you prefer Moonin's Nair Sair with 7 decks instead. But then either character, if you go that route with Nair Sair being true, then you have to deal with bad exchange stats. But for Jiro, you're forced to take the bad stats path. So it's a challenge, but it's also fun and solid if you can get it to work. And also his SIGs hit hard. Isaiah is just a good pick. Same vein as Reno. Simply because a little bit too much dex. But it's fine. I mean, the SIGs are pretty average, but they're solid signatures. So Isaiah's just solid. Artemis is a great pick. I mean, you could do much better with 1 less dex on Artemis, then you'd have a super well-rounded stat distribution because you really only need 4 dex for Scythe and Lance. But you can't have everything, can you? I mean, 9 speed Artemis is an option, don't get me wrong. If you're wild enough to go for 9 speed Artemis with 4 decks, then you can outmaneuver a lot of stuff. Which might be something I'll explore in the future. But that's some mad potential right there. So we're gonna have to put Artemis a bit higher. Right there. Thea is another character with high speed. But the kicker is your base 4 strength and base 3 defense. Which means you're definitely not going to win exchanges against anyone on the roster. And that is a massive liability. She's not a good pick because of that. You can't win exchanges with anyone. Even Lin Fei can outbeat you if Lin Fei is playing strength stance. And that's why practice makes perfect for Thea. I mean, if you can maneuver and get reads and gimps, good. But otherwise, if you're forced to play back and forth, you're not going to thrive. But the signatures are amazing, so if you can also land signatures, that's also a good thing. On to Fate. Fate is a great pick. The stats are perfect. The weapon combination is good. The signatures are really good too. You can't really go wrong with Fate. Fate's like if you want a main orb, play Fate kind of character. And also you get sidelight into neutral sig on Scythe on Jumpable too. 4 decks is the baseline for Scythe, and you can get it to work with Orb too, so that's amazing. Fate's a great pick. Thor. Thor is a great pick if you're going for stats. Otherwise, signature-wise, it's really only the hammer that's good. The orb sigs are kind of unwieldy for Thor. But if you want fundamental back and forth gameplay and you always want to win exchanges, Thor's pretty solid because you get the 1-2 punches of both weapons with orb and hammer. So yes, on the lower end of great pick, but still solid. Really solid. Bryn. Bryn is a great pick. Not amazing, but the versatility of the weapons with area denial and signatures that hit hard enough with flexible stats, that's pretty good. Maybe right here. Neutral sig on Axe is amazing. That's why she's really good. Especially since Axe downlight doesn't hit grounded anymore. That's a really good boon for Axe. Val. Val is a great pick. Really flexible stats. And solid signatures. Solid kits for both weapons. The stats can work in your favor if you prefer a methodical approach, or if you prefer even an aggressive approach, doesn't matter. Val is really flexible, and that's her key strength. Right there. Volkov is in the practice makes perfect. Because your stats are just way too wonky. If only speed stance took away from anything but strength. That's all I'm going to say. Everything else about Volkov is sleeper. But the stats, though, holy. Also, the active frames and the spike on Scythe side sig is many a player's bane. But you just gotta work with the stats. Vivi. Vivi has amazing stats. Really balanced. Along the veins of Diana. But her boots, though, is terrifying. And spammable. So we're gonna put Vivi right here. If you're a blaster main and you don't care what your other weapon is, go Vivi. It'll make your life easier, I promise. Lord Vrax. Practice makes perfect. I'm sorry, Vrax. I've played you for so much, but I've come to the conclusion that having bad exchange stats is too much of a liability. And I'm saying this because, sure, you can land downlight, neutral light all you want on lands, but if you get read by a decent strength character, you're going down. And the Lance signature cheese can only get you so far because you gotta play blasters eventually. And if you can't, well, tough tomatoes, pal. So that's why Vrax is right here. If there just has to be that special person that can play both blasters and lands equally well, then he'll be a good pick. But as of right now, that blend of player is so exotic that we can't prove that theory. So you're at the top of practice makes perfect, Vrax. Mordex is a great pick. Mainly because your stats are so flexible, and the signatures are really good too, and the weapon combination is basically like, it's like It's redundant in that they're both string weapons and offstage weapons, but it pays off anyways because they offer different coverage areas. So he's right up there. Top of great pick, as he should. I mean, it's definitely not easy mode because you still gotta read. That's the important thing. You gotta read. Lin Fei. Sorry, Lin Fei, but practice makes perfect simply because getting hit by stray Sayers from an axe or a hammer over and over again as a Lin Fei stinks. Your signatures are really good, don't get me wrong. The side sigs catch movement options really well, and the end sigs both hit grounded, and you can get crazy stuff going with the high dex. But either way, you can't reliably win if you're up against someone that knows what you're doing and compared to what they're doing, and they can avoid getting hit too much. Then that's where back and forth gameplay will be against you. King Zuva. King Zuva he's a great pick. Kind of like Thor. Yeah. Kind of like Thor in the sense, but a bit higher because high strength with decent defense is better than decent strength and high defense. But anyways, the SIGs are amazing. They hit hard. And Boost can carry the damage up, and Hammer King finishes the stock. But you might struggle against characters that have good aerial tools. So that's literally it. Cassidy. Practice makes perfect. Unfortunately, she has the most insane hammer kit, but you're either going to have low defense or you're going to have low speed. And having those on blasters is miserable. So, if by chance that you're lacking a hammer and you're stuck on blasters or are on arms, that's going to be an issue when you're casting. But since you have so much at your disposal for 9 dex hammer, we got to put you above Vrax for sure. Yep. Nash. And also, downlight neutral sig on hammers for Cassidy is obnoxious. It's so good for tilting people, so if you like to be a thorn in someone's side and don't mind losing here and there, Cassidy is amazing for that. Okay. Nash. He's a great pick. He has all the stats you need to go however you choose. But his signatures are really hit or miss depending on what type of player you're up against. So I put him along the lines of like Zol area. Hattori. Hattori is probably the bottom line for great pick. Solid weapon combination. They cover each other really well for in terms of confirms and damage build and range. But Hattori's lacking in exchange stats because her stats start off low for 4 strength and 4 defense base. So if you're in a trade back and forth situation, Hattori man is likely to struggle. That's literally all that's holding her back. But at least it's 4 strength, 5 defense most of the time if you're playing defense stance for Hattori, which is enough to put you leagues ahead of many characters that are stuck with 4-4. Loki. Loki is a great pick. And I would say he's right here. I used to overhype Loki back then because he has Nair Sayer on Scythe and he doesn't have the bad stats because he's still 5 strength, 5 defense. with 7 dex, 5 speed if you're playing strength stance. But his signatures drop way so much, especially side sig. Like all it takes is a random opponent jumping while you're mid animation, and then it just drops. And that's made me lose quite a bit as Loki. So yeah, Loki is not as cracked up as he is supposed to be for what I said, but he's still a great pick. Lucian. Lucian is a great pick. I mean, 5 dex Katars is solid. 7 speed is really good for positioning. 6 defense is solid. 4 strength is meh. But it's honestly everything you need to be a competent player, and the signatures are wildly good. So, Lucian is solid. I'll put him right here. Actually, right here. Yep. We're covering Priya last, because she's not even tournament legal. Okay, Orion. Orion. Haha, a Lance character made it, guys. Yes, Orion is definitely easy mode. The SIGs, man. You can just spam to your heart's content. On top of that, you still have a crazy spiker with spear neutral SIG. Just let it rip after a side light or after a side light or down light on spear, and they can't jump out of it. And if they don't have a dodge, bye bye stock right there. And also, you can just parry and just wait around and just down sig spam whenever you punish them, and that works too. And those weapons have good aerial tools too, so you can be floaty, McGloaty over there. So yep, Orion is easy mode, and probably the only Lance character there. If you want a character that has amazing exchange back and forth potential, look no further than 7. Now 7 is rather unwieldy because there's the threshold where having too little dex can be problematic. But if you can use the weapons well and get used to the SIGs, 7 will let you tank so many things, and you can still hit super hard with that high strength. It's like everything Queen 9 should have been. Emphasize, 7 is a she. Okay. Sir Roland. Affectionately known by myself, that I refer to him as Sir Rolls a lot. Because all you need is like the Lance skin on wheels when he does side sig on Lance, and it's like he's rolling a lot around the ground. Wheelchair Lance style. Now, Sir Roland, he's a great pick, and they buffed his signatures, especially Lance neutral sig and Lance side sig. So he's actually got a fighting chance with the rest of the cast now. All we need left is a buff on his sword side sig, then it would be amazing. But he has the capacity to stay alive for back and forth gameplay, so we'll put him right here. He's kind of interchangeable with Thor. If you're pretty good with fundamentals and just want the capacity to trade, Roland's your guy. Scarlet. We've spent a ton of time on Scarlet, and if there's one thing I can say, is that she's well-rounded for a player that likes to be able to hit hard with straight hits. And with 7 strength, 5 defense, that's solid back and forth stats. But like Hammer is not in the best spot right now, and Lance is just alright. So I'm gonna put Scarlet right along the same vein as Olgrim, depending on what secondary you prefer. But Olgrim has the edge because he can go max low dex. Sentinel. Insane stats, insane signatures, good weapon comp. Not much else to it. Rather unrepresented, but he's basically an alternate to Thor, but you get extra weapon diversity because you get an amazing string weapon. I'm actually putting Sentinel right here and Koji right here. Switcheroo. There we go. Neutral SIGs on both of Sentinel's weapons are obnoxious, by the way. They really need to tone that down. Taros. The iconic back and forth stray hits character. Right there. He's not easy mode simply because if you don't land your hits, you're gonna get punished. That's all I'm gonna say. But if you don't mess up, then you're cooking. People are gonna fall so fast to those hard hitting signatures and hard hitting light attacking kit. But you also have the weakness, like you have to space your hits well enough. And on top of that, fast weapons are probably going to make mincemeat out of you if you don't play to your strengths. So Taros is top of great pick, but he's definitely not easy mode though. Yeah. Thatch. Thatch is a good pick. If only if he had more defense. Base 3 defense is always a liability. Yeah, I don't think any character with base 3 defense is getting any higher than good pick. But on the upside, high strength on sword and blasters is really good. Helps across the board because Blaster Sayer gets all of that extra mileage for early kills. So, yep. Amazing signatures for sword, too. And that stray cannonball, you never know when it'll come in handy. Finally, we get to Priya. And since Priya is currently unpatched, and she's the only Chakram character, and she has sword, the best weapon, she's the best of easy mode. No questions asked. I mean, you literally have a 4-hit true combo on Chakram, right? Split version, side light, neutral light, nair, recovery true, right? And those dares are annoying. And also, you get sword, which is like the best weapon right now that's legal. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this tier list, and have a good one. Peace.